Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the first episode back of WoLF Howls, an interview series where I ask peoples of the interwebs about how they got into gaming and their take on recent events. This evening we have ourselves a rising star of the Southeast Asia StarCraft 2 scene, a young man who is actually the same age as me. Without further ado, let's welcome Ryan NXZ Jones to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm actually not too bad. It's been about a month in my new home. It's my first.
Oh,
I moved out of home, so it's my first actual episode of anything that I've recorded in my new home. So you have taken this house's virginity when it comes to video content.
yes, made it.
So we're going to kick things off with a few questions that I ask everyone. So first off, how old were you when you got into gaming, and how did you get into gaming?
I'm not sure if I could tell you age. I would have been pretty young. I'm, I'm not sure, maybe 8 or 9, or maybe probably earlier than that, to be honest. But just various little things on the computer before, and then maybe got PlayStation 2 when I was maybe 9-ish, and then from there, just playing with my brothers and stuff is probably where I first got really into gaming.
So would you say your brothers influenced you when it came to gaming? They got you into it in the first place?
Um, Yeah, to an extent. I mean, obviously, I really wanted to play the games too. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, they're doing it, I want to do it as well.
Yep.
There's lots of fighting. It's like, oh, who gets the next go? Is it me? Is it him? But yeah, I mean, to a pretty large extent, like maybe I wouldn't get the games, but like my older brother would get a game, and then I'd play it, and I guess that's kind of how they
Oh,
may have influenced me.
fair enough. And so roughly how old were you when you discovered StarCraft or StarCraft 2?
StarCraft. I think I was 13 when my brother showed me Brood War.
Yep.
Um, and at the time, yeah, so he showed me it, and I remember he showed me it, and he's like playing Terran, and he says, yeah, there's this other race. It's really difficult. Like, I can't play it. It's really tough. And me being there, I'm super competitive. I was like, oh, what's the race? Tell me. I want to play it. Like, I'm just watching him play, and eventually he gives it to me, and I'm like, and it's Zerg, and I'm like, oh, I have to play the hard race. I have to play the race that's really difficult, one that he says is really hard. So that's how I ended up playing Zerg
Uh,
back when I was 13, and I had to beat my older brother
so
in everything.
so did you always play Zerg
Yeah,
since
yeah,
since
yeah.
then?
So he said pretty much he's like Zerg's the hardest. So I was like, dude, I'm
Sticking
I'm
to it.
I'm up for the challenge. Let's go. And so I sat down. I mean, I played other races on and off. I played Protoss and went one base carrier with cannons all around the edge of my base.
As you do,
You
of
know,
course.
everyone does. You need the carriers, and
Everyone has that
and the
phase in
battle
their life.
cruisers. But for the most part, just Zerg. Yeah.
And how old were you when you got into Grandmasters? Like all this time of just playing a bit casually. So how long did it take you to get to that point where you're actually really, really good at this game?
Yeah. So when I first got it on Southeast Asia, that was late 2011, around September in
Yep,
2011 was when I first got it on Southeast Asia. Back when there was still some semblance of competitiveness on the server.
of course.
Uh, Later, so I don't know how old I would have been there. That would have been 15, I believe, maybe 16, but no, 15, I think. And then I would have got GM on NA. It was the very beginning of 2013, like January 2013, I think. Um, so yeah, so it was 2 years later.
Not bad. So just gonna deviate for a quick second here. Do you study university? Yeah,
I do.
that's what you're doing now after high school. So what do you
Yes,
study?
I'm studying engineering with a major in civil.
And what drove you to look into that field?
It's just mostly something that I'm pretty good at. It's always like math, science, and then it kind of just led towards this, and it was like, that doesn't sound too bad. There was a lot of other stuff I'm like, I don't want to do that, but engineering, that sounds all right.
Not
So that was pretty much it to for choosing to do engineering.
okay. That's I guess pretty fair enough answer. let's go back into StarCraft 2. Over the past year, your skill has increased dramatically. So last year, here's some of the results you ended up getting. You got 12th at ACL Brisbane, and then you got
Mm,
fifth place later in the year at ACL Sydney. Now this year, you've burst forward and defeated your former teammate and mentor Pig to make it into the round of 32 for WCS, which is on a global scale,
mm.
not just in like the Australian and Southeast Asian scale. Since that time, you've increased dramatically. So what have you done personally in and out of the game to improve yourself in this time?
I mean, it's interesting for that period of time, especially because around sometime after ACL Sydney, a month or two after, I actually took a break. I took 2 or 3 months off, didn't play any StarCraft, was like, I might be done, you know? I wasn't sure if I was going to play again. I mean, I said when I was like, I'll probably come back, but at the moment, I don't really want to play anymore. But it came around to like the end of the year. This is last year, and the WCS for 2015 format was announced with the two Premier League slots for Oceania and then four Challenger slots and the prize distribution and all this.
Yep.
And I'm here looking at this saying that's achievable. I can do that. If I mean I maybe can't get Premier League, but I could make Challenger if I'm at the top of my game, if I'm at where I am, where I was last year, even the year before, if I can beat these guys, I can get up to that level. And so it was kind of coming back from that break, and I was just practicing. Like I completely kind of revamped my play. Like I just started from the base. It was like, all right, everything I want to change, I changed. I like looked at all. I was just starting from the ground up, kind of initially in each matchup, and just spending that summer break, working on my play, and then coming through that to the second season of WCS, I was able to make it to Challenger and then Premier League by beating Pig.
Nice. So do you have like certain practice partners that you work with, or do you just grind out that ladder like a lot of people do?
I mean, most of the time I'd say it's ladder practice. I mean, I'm not much of a grinder. I don't play a lot of StarCraft. There's the hashtag dedication thread on SC2C that, I mean, I'm never near the top. I'm always, mid-table or something like that, and it's not, and it's just not. I'm not laddering that much. But before tournaments, I'll play a lot. For example, for WCS, I practiced a lot with Law, my teammate on Silicon Sports. He actually helped me a lot for Pig, and also again for ACL. But outside of that, just again a little bit of practice like Mighty Kiwi Wally, mostly ZVZ. There's not a lot of Protoss or Terran players that I don't consider like the person I'd be practicing for.
Yep.
So it's like, I can practice Zerg with someone who I'm not going to play, but I can't practice Protoss or Terran with someone
Yeah.
from Australia that I won't play.
Okay. And I guess all the Terrans and Protosses in the Southeast Asian scene have their own style as well, so you're not really preparing
Yeah.
for the average Protoss or the average
Yeah,
Terran.
yeah, yeah. If you take Protoss for example, you have probe, and then you have like frustration, and frustration is just really aggressive. Lots of two base, lots of three base all ins, and then probe is kind of this kind of slightly off kilter, kind of the same thing every game. Protoss play kind of plays more macro, more
Yeah.
three base, four base, and it's like completely opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're both competitors of the same level that you have to be ready for.
Yeah, exactly. So when you came up against Pig, what were some of the things that you had prepared for Jared? So like, did you like prepare any builds? Did you think, all right, I'm going to do this against him, or did you just kind of like just go, all right, I'm versing Jared. He's beaten me before. What am I going to do? And just talk about your thought process.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of preparation I did. I had like pretty much the whole series planned out. I sat down and I was like, okay, how am I going to beat Pig? He's better than me. He has more skill, but that doesn't mean I can't beat him in this best of five. So I sat down and I looked at it, and I was like, okay, there's three four-player maps in this pool, and in ZVZ, when you have four-player maps, that allows for coin flips that wouldn't occur on other maps because they don't have the scouting.
Yep.
their overlord might not see you, so you can go for crazy all-ins and they won't know until you're like at their base, which makes it quite difficult to play. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, all right, how am I going to beat him? Where am I? Pretty much it was where are my strengths in the matchup, and where are his strengths? And I thought my strengths are probably Roach versus Roach kind of mid game, early to mid game, and also I was pretty confident with opening with a 9 pool, and also that I didn't want him to play Muta. I felt if he played Muta, he would be able to win. So, and then at that point, obviously, the 4-player maps came in, where pretty much I was like, okay, I want as many 4-player maps because that way I can fit as many like offbeat strategies and maybe catch him off guard in 1 or 2 games.
Yep.
And the way the best of 5 works, there's 7 maps in the pool, and 5 maps you play. So each player gets 1 veto. So I let him veto one of the 4-player maps. Then I vetoed the really Echo, which is this really defensive map where he likes to play Roach and Festa, which he's really quite good at, and Roach is just, and I like to stay on Roach and go bar and move and just harass everywhere, which doesn't work very well on Echo because it's so defensive on 3 base. Yeah. So I vetoed that map, and then I had a bunch of the rest of the maps I kind of had this strategy for. So I mean, I'll go through that. So I vetoed Echo, and then we actually went on to pick the maps, and he goes to pick Echo as his first map, and I'm like. And he realized, like, I just vetoed it. But I was like, okay, I feel like that's pretty good, He wants to pick the map that I just vetoed.
Yeah.
So,
and
then we jumped into the games, and it's pretty much, I just practiced a ton of 9 pool versus Hatch first on these 2 maps, Varney and Coda, and a ton of 9 pool versus 15 pool. And I was like, okay, between these 2 maps, I'll win one. I'll win one with the 9 pool. That was my goal. And then I had Expedition Lost, which was like, this is the map I want to play macro on. This is where I want to play Roach vs. Roach, and I think I'll beat him.
Yep.
So I sat down on that map, and I prepared a build. And I had a build prepared where I was going gasless into speed. And I realized, well, what if he opens Muta? We'd look back at his replays. Laura and I went back and watched his videos, and he'd almost always open Mutalisk on Expedition Lost.
Yep.
So we're like, what if he decides to go for Muta? So I went back... And we found a build. We found this Roach Bane all-in, and I was in practice against players who I'd have them open Muta, Wally, Law. I have them open Muta, and I never lost with it. Like I was just completely demolishing them. And then I came up against Pig in that, and he did it. Everything went exactly to plan, but I was like so nervous, and I threw it away, and I choked, and I lost the game.
Oh no!
And it was like, oh.
So why'd you throw away the build?
It wasn't so like I did the build.
Okay, yeah.
And he was going Muta, but my control with like he baited my speedlings all over the map, and he was doing all these really nice moves. It was really well played by him, and I was just kind of falling apart, I was trying. My hands were shaking, and I'm like, come on, oh no. And then I moved on, and then I had the 2 4-player maps to finish on. And so most of the time in ZVZ, the 4-player maps, the strength is that you can do those weird all-ins. But I decided to go the complete other way. I said to myself, I'm going to go this really greedy Hatch Gas pool, skip the Baneling Nest into Carapace. I'm going to go this build, super greedy, and he's going to play safe because he thinks I'm going to all-in, and it's like his tournament life on the line. And the first game we did it on that map, it didn't work. He saw it, he knew what was going on, and he went to all-in me, which is the counter, right? He goes for a Ling Bane all-in. I don't have a Baneling Nest. But then I had this insane hold, and I managed to hold on, and then I eventually win with Carapace in the Ling Bane war.
Nice.
In the 4th game. Tied up 2-2. And then the 5th game, I was like, I'm just going to do it again. And he played safe, and he was he forgot Roach speed, and he was just kind of falling apart by that point. And I was just, I was so far ahead from this risk I took, and it ended up working out, and I was able to take it 3-2.
Nice. So you take down the giant that is Pig. Oink, oink. Mm-hmm. He is dead. He's now out of Premier League. RIP in pieces, Pig. I'm sorry, mate. I love you, but you're gone. Can you talk about your experience of WCS? Correct me if I'm wrong, but you went over to Europe for this, yeah?
I went to the studio in LA.
Studio in LA. Oh, okay. It was in LA. Nice. So this was your first time going overseas for StarCraft? And,
yeah, that's right.
And this is like your first time on like the global scale as well, yeah?
Mm. Yeah, it is.
So, can you talk a little bit about your thought process going into um, your first series versus Hearthstone and the entire weekend as a whole?
Um, I mean, I didn't have a lot of preparation going into WCS. I mean, I looked a lot at Hearthstone, and it kind of felt like because the weekend before he'd played at DreamHack, and he got top eight there. He was the highest finishing non-Korean, and he'd been destroying all these Zergs, and he just played this really safe, methodical style. We're watching this, like trying to find a hole, and I just couldn't find any kind of weakness. So I was like, I guess I have to take him straight up, and I wasn't that confident because he's just destroying these Zergs. He's beating Snoot.
Yep.
I mean, I think he lost to Hyun, but I think he beat a few good Korean Zergs there as well. So it was just okay, So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna try play my game in the first game, and for that weekend, and I played him, and he just completely outplayed me in the first game, and then the second game, I think I did a little bit better. I felt pretty good, but just small things with his play allowed him to kind of get in just before he had a really nice time, which allowed him to win. But it was pretty close up until that point.
And then going into the losers game, Xenocider, how did you feel your series went with him?
I really didn't play very well. I mean, Xenocider is really quite good. Um, and I kind of my goal was to play this kind of Roachling Bane style where I'd avoid just take some really strong fights and end the game quicker, so I wouldn't have to deal with his multitasking. But he was opening through, and he was just kind of able to just drop my build, and I was never able to stabilize on three bases. Kind of like I was constantly getting harassed, and I was getting overlord like supply capped constantly, and I was like, oh, this is so because I'm going roaches and like I'm getting supply capped, and it was just a mess. I was getting caught, and the games were like it was really not clean from my side, and so he was just kind of all over me from the get go, just constantly and with momentum, which made it just really difficult to play against him.
So sadly, you did get eliminated from the WCS Premier League at this point, and you left at the round of 32. So could you talk
Yeah.
about your experience, what it was like going to another country to play the game that we all love?
It was pretty amazing, I got to go to America. Flight was paid for, accommodation was paid for. I mean, I stayed for a few extra days. I went to like Disneyland. Um,
Nice.
and yeah, I was going around. I got to meet all these players that I've watched. I met Kane, I met Huck, I met Hostams. Obviously I met Rhett. Rhett was crazy. I was really starstruck. I was like, oh my goodness, this is Rhett. And Violet was there, and I was like, wow. And I'm here, and I'm just this Australian dude who beat Pig once, and I'm like, oh man, what am I doing here? But it was so good, and it kind of made this. I need to do better. Like I need to come back and show them that like I'm not a complete scrub. I need to come back and prove myself. I was the only player who went 0-4. Everyone else took at least a map, and that was kind of like, I wish I could have at least taken a map or maybe beaten Xeno or something, just something. But other than that, it was pretty amazing experience.
Well, I guess it just fuels your passion to do better next time, to keep going. Like
Yeah, yeah,
the
exactly. That's how I felt.
the qualifiers are this weekend coming, the 8th or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. This coming weekend in a few days.
nice. No, not the 8th, the 5th. There we go.
Mm.
Something happening on the 8th. But that's beside the point. Um, so, a little earlier in the year, you ended up leaving your team, Exile 5, who is probably one of the best teams in the Southeast Asia region in Australia. So why did you end up leaving them?
Yeah, so back when I took that break, I remained on X5. I was like wasn't playing, wasn't required to do anything. Like I was just on the team as like a kind of like an honorary member.
Yeah.
And then around the time I came back, I kind of wanted to take it slow at first. I didn't really want to play tournaments. I wanted to kind of play casually and ease my way back in and have some fun with it. And I felt like with X5, like you said, it's just such a huge brand, such a huge organization in the scene. It was like there was so much pressure on me to be like, you can't lose in tournaments. You can't be knocked out by this random. You have to be like always trying your hardest, not messing around, and just every time it was like, oh, I lost to this guy, and it's like, ah, and it hit home. Whereas if I wasn't on the team, so I ended up leaving because of this reason. When I wasn't on the team, it was like I was able to just play, improve myself, and it kind of made the game less of a chore and more of something I was doing just to improve and have fun with
Yep.
it, as opposed to like you need to do this because you need to because it's your team and you have to represent them well.
So, in saying that, you're now a part of Silicon Esports. So, how did you end up joining them, and how did this process affect you joining another team?
Yeah, so by the time Challenger rolled around, I was still teamless in the WCS qualifiers. I played it. I had some offers throughout that time, and I turned them down. I said no. I just want to improve right now. I'm not interested in joining a team. And I made Challenger, and at that point, I didn't really expect to beat Pig or Igers in Challenger. And so mostly I was like, well, I've made it. I made it to where my goal was, which was mostly Challenger when I started playing again. And I was like, I can join a team. And at that point, I was looking at the teams, and there wasn't too many options going around. And I was like, Law, who's now my teammate on Silicon Sports, um, I was talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, man. Like, if you want to come talk to Rez, we can see if you can come join." And I was like, you know what? Um, I feel like that's a team. They've got like some players that I really mesh with, and I'm pretty good friends with,
Yep.
and management, and like they do all these great things with the Barcross down in Melbourne. So I was like, that sounds pretty good. So I ended up talking with them, and I guess the rest is history now. But yeah, it's been really quite good with them thus far.
Nice, nice. So, let's leave that for a sec. And so, this past weekend was ACL Sydney 2015. And
Yeah.
for the first time in forever, like for a very long time, there was no
Yes.
Iagers, no Pig, no Betrayus, and King Kong has not been in form for quite some time now. So this ACL was the most open ever for anyone to win. People has slated Frustration to be the favorite. Some said that even you or Lapecs were going to win. So in the end, you finished in an amazing second place and bringing home all that dirty esports money of $850. First off, I just want to say congrats on your hard work. And second of all, I barely got to follow the tourney. So as we go through this, would you be able to help fill in the gaps?
Of course.
So, how hard was the open bracket to progress out of?
Um, Not particularly difficult. I mean, before the event, I didn't know who signed up, and I was kind of, I wasn't in the most practice. I hadn't practiced very much at all. Like really since WCS, I've been mostly focusing on university, so I hadn't really practiced as much. Um, I was a bit out of form, so I was like, oh, I just want to make it through open bracket. No, I don't care. I just want to make it through open bracket. That's fine. And I mean, I ended up with a bracket with Alapex in it, and that was about it as far as players went that I recognized. I mean, a Freight was in it too. I didn't actually see his name when I first looked at the bracket. Um, but yeah, I mean, the three of us qualified. I don't even remember who was fourth from our bracket,
I think it
but
was
it was
Frustration got fourth.
pretty straightforward. It was a pretty no frustration was seeded into groups.
Okay, yeah.
For the open bracket,
Oh, right,
it
yeah,
was
sorry.
Alapex, me, and a Freight who made it through because
That's
there's
right,
two
yeah.
open brackets.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, who are your biggest threats going into the tourney, and who do you have to worry about the most?
Um, yeah. So like I said, like my goals weren't too lofty. I mean, I feel like everyone was a threat. Well, when I say everyone, I mean the players that are considered strong. So like I'll kind of run through each group. I guess in Group A there was Frustration, who I respect him. He's a good player. And then Group B had Law and Azure and I think someone else. Maybe I'm wrong. That it had Ender until his visa got denied, so he wasn't able to come. But I mean, that was going to be a really tough group. There was obviously King Kong. There was obviously Alapex, Mighty Kiwi, all these players that like have beaten me in the past and probably could do it
Yep.
again in the future. And I was like, oh, um, so as yeah, I mean, I was kind of worried about everyone really.
All right. Um, Sorry, I was just quickly looking at the brackets for ACL.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, lost my spot. Um, so you're known to be quite an emotional player, and I've seen this in person at ACL Brisbane last year, and I've seen it
Mm,
online watching you at LANs, and of course there is the most glorious GIF known to mankind of you. When who was it?
yeah.
Who was it that you beat?
It was at ACL Brisbane 2013.
The
It
year
was in
before.
the losers. Well, not the final. It was the loser got fourth place,
Yeah,
and it was the second map against Light, and I won the map,
that's
and
right.
that's the reaction that occurred.
It is probably the most glorious GIF I have ever seen to this day.
My headset just falls off, dude. I was so worried too. I was like, oh, I hope I didn't break anything.
So anyway, um, oh god, what was I gonna say? All right. So anyway, so how do you keep control of your emotions when you go to lands and in tournaments, and so you don't fall too much into a bad mental position?
Yeah, this is actually something I've been thinking about recently, as because my results have been really quite good recently, and I've been thinking like, whoa. And in my head, when I like to think about how I'd like to play StarCraft, I like to think of myself, as this cold, calculating. It's all precision, like nothing phases me. I'm just, a machine, and I just play, and everything just go like I have these insane mechanics, and I just beat everyone left and right. I don't feel anything. I win, and I'm like, yeah, as expected, and I lose, and I'm like, well, that's fine. I'll just beat him the next time. Like it doesn't even phase me, and that like I don't get nervous. And I like to like that's how I was like that's how I like to think of myself. I'm like that's how I should be, right? But then I think about it, and it's like that's not really who I am. Like I kind of my heart's on my sleeve. I'm fist pumping. I lose, and my head is in my hands. I'm just devastated, and it's like I think I'm a really momentum based play. So it can be tough. If I take a hard loss, uh, it can, sometimes that's enough to just I'm out at that point. At ACL when I lost in winners bracket, I mean I might be jumping forward a little bit here, but I lost to Lapecs in the winners semi, and I was crushed after that. Like I think I made some posts on Facebook or maybe some tweets where I was like, probably only going to get fifth. I'm super, destroyed right now. Like, oh, I can't believe, I beat King Kong, but now like I'm out, and then I kind of eventually it was like I took some time off, and I kind of walked out, and I was like, okay, like come on, pull it back together, like you can do this, and it was kind of just you have to like reframe myself because it is tough sometimes. I had to get some momentum back because yeah, like I said, like I am emotional. Like when I'm playing my best, it is when I'm like fully in the heat of the moment. It isn't so much like this insane mechanics or anything. It's just me kind of making my way through somehow by the skin of my teeth, just
Yeah.
beating these players, and
So
and I mean it does make it tough. So I think it's like when I'm good, I'm good, but when I'm bad, it's hard for me sometimes to be good.
okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about your mindset and how each of your sets going into on your path to the grand finals folded out. So in the championship bracket, you started off with King Kong and ended up being knocked into the lower bracket from the first round. Can you tell me what happened in this series and um, how that hit you?
Well, so I mean, what actually happened was I beat King Kong in the first round,
Oh, okay.
and then I lost to Alapex in the winners semi. So because I was the eighth seed, and the way they did it at this ACL was the best first placer on maps played the worst second placer on maps. So me, I was 8-4 on maps, maybe I was 9-4,
Oh, wait,
but
okay.
I was tied with Alapex on maps in my group, and that meant that because he won our best of three, he was ahead of me on head to head. So I almost came first in my group, but I went from first in my group to the worst second place. And King Kong went like 10-1 or something in his group. So he was set. He was first seed. So I had to play him first up, and I was kind of like, oh man. Like I saw the bracket and I was like, King Kong, like I've never beaten him before. I mean, I've taken maps before, but like I've never beaten him. Because he's so strong for so long. But recently, like you said, he has been a little bit out of form. So I was like, well, I'll just do my best, and I had to play him on stage, and and I was able to beat him. I can't really remember. Oh, he got this really cheeky all-in on me on the first game, and then I was able to barely clutch out the rest of the series. Kind of more his bad than my good, at least in game two. But yeah, I was able to win, and I was pretty happy with that. But at that point, I was like, I could do this. Like, I could win this tournament. Like, I beat King Kong. He's the favorite.
Right.
And then I had Lapecs, and at this point, I was still fine. I had Lapecs. I mean, I'd lost to him in open bracket, and I'd lost to him in groups. So at this point, he was 4-1 against me.
Yep.
But I was like, that's okay. I can beat him. The 2-1 we had, it was close. The 2-0 in open bracket that he had, I just temple banged him twice. Like, I just didn't want to show him any of like my strategies at all. I was just like, this is only for seeding. We're both going in the same group, so I don't want you to know what I'm doing. So I didn't really count that. So I was like, oh, he just beat me 2-1 closely once. So he played, and then he just kind of thrashed me 2-0, and I was like, what?
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, you just smashed me down, and I was like, kind of, at that point, it was like, okay, trying to manage my, because at first I was just so devastated, like, I was just standing, like, around, just, like, not talking to him, just kind of, man, I could have done this, it was like, I could have done this, but now I've blown it, like, I can't beat all these good, like, I had Mighty Kiwi, and I was like, Mighty Kiwi's gonna beat me, Mighty Kiwi's so good, like, I can't beat Mighty Kiwi, and it was like, well, even if I beat him, I have to play King Kong again, and King Kong's amazing, there's no one gonna beat him again. And it was like, it was just super, just like, there's nothing I thought I was just out. Yeah, the loser of my next match would have been 5th place. And I was like, 5th place again, another ACL Sydney, another 5th place. Like,
Can't have that.
But, eventually I was kind of watching it, and I kind of walked outside, and there was this green field at the Macquarie University where the event was held, and there was this kind of lovely green field down to this like lake. And I kind of just went for a walk, and I just walked around, and I was like, trying to get my head right again, and I think it kind of worked. Kind of got myself together, and I played Mighty Kiwi. And I don't know if you brought that up, but I ended up playing Mighty Kiwi, and it was like I was still kind of nervous because I have a lot of respect for Mighty Kiwi.
He's a very solid player, and he'd been playing pretty well.
Yeah, he'd been doing well all weekend. He finished first in his group.
Yep, and he ended up beating,
I think, and he beat Pigeon several times.
Yeah,
I mean, he'd been doing well. I mean, he lost to Pigeon in winners there, to be in losers, but up until that point, he had a winning record against Pigeon. So it was like he kind of got lucky, but I had to play him, and he has this really nice record against me. Most players in C, aside from like King Kong and Petraeus, don't have, and like Igers, they don't have insanely winning records. But Mighty Kiwi is someone who, of the players who are kind of around my level, has had a really good record against me.
Yep. And
so I was kind of worried about him. But we ended up playing, and it was like, it was really not very close at all. Like, it was really one-sided in my favor. And I was kind of like, whoa, what's going on? What just happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what? And he was kind of doing something, I kind of punished him. Like, he was doing something new. Like, he was playing gasless, which is something he's never done for a long time. Only recently he's kind of started picking it up. And I kind of beat him with the stuff that, like, you have to be experienced. Like, you're going to lose to it the first few times, the stuff I did against him, which was the stuff it wasn't something I normally do either. So I don't think he was expecting it at all. It was kind of just weird, and I just rolled him over, and I was like, wow. But even then I was like, well, I managed to beat him, but, I just kind of abused him a little bit. And the other match for 5th place was Wally versus King Kong. And I've played him once or twice, and I think he's beaten me both times. And King Kong obviously is like, there's no way I can. And I was like, well, it doesn't even matter who. So I was watching this series. I'm like, it doesn't matter who wins because I'll just lose to the winner. like at this point, I'm still like, I don't know if I can do it. Yeah. So then I had King Kong again, who beat Wally, and I was like, okay, I don't know if I can do it. And so I was talking to Law, and Law, he got knocked out in groups, which is unfortunate, but he came 4th in both of the qualifiers for ACL, and he beat King Kong twice. I think he knocked King Kong out in both of them. So I was like, so I was talking to him. He's like, man, this is what you have to do. This is what you need to do to beat King Kong. So so he was kind of giving me advice, like kind of how to play it, and I ended up having some good build choices, and I was able to beat him 2-1 in this kind of crazy series where it ended with him going hatch first to a gold base, and me going 9 pool, and then him having this insane drone micro, which almost like kept him in the game, and it was just like, I was so nervous in this series because up until this point I wasn't that nervous. I was playing fine,
Yeah.
but when it was like I was in losers, 1-1 with King Kong, and it's like,
Shit. You're like, oh
I
god, here we go.
yeah.
This
I'm
is it.
so nervous, and but I managed to beat him, and I was so excited. I mean, I think there's the stream VOD where it's like I get up and I turn around and I'm just like hugging people as they come on stage. I'm like just so ecstatic that I managed to beat him this time.
Nice. And
Yeah.
after beating King Kong, came all the way back round to Lapecs.
Oh man. So yeah, so at this point, Lapex is 6-1 against me at this tournament alone. Like he's completely demolishing me all weekend, and I'm like, all right, what am I gonna do? And so I can't. I mean, I don't even remember the games. Um, oh, what happened? I mean, I won 2-1, but I don't remember how. I feel like I was just kind of playing. Oh, okay. So in the third game, because I kind of didn't know what he was doing. Like the first two games, we went 1-1, and he kind of he did something really sneaky in the game he won, which got him way ahead. And it was like, I can't believe I let him get me like that. And so there was the third game. Oh, and I got really lucky in the first game too. The first game was 9 pool against pool first, and I think he had FPS delay or something. He lagged out, and he just like completely missed microed and ended up losing his hatchery, losing all his lings. And I was like, wow, I think I'm
Shit.
okay. Like I think I'm ahead with this.
Yeah.
And so I carried that through and ended up winning that game. So then I lost to the sneaky little thing that he did in the second game. And then it was the third game. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Because on this map, which was Expedition Lost,
Yeah.
he'd all into me. He'd 9 pooled, which is I'm not all in, but you know what I mean. Like he'd been aggressive both times because we played 3 series already. He's done this build like every time we played on this map, and I'm like, man, I really don't want 9 pool because he'll 15 pool because he plays really safe gasless, and so I'm like, okay, what do I do? If I open hatch first, he might just beat me with with the 9 pool. What do I do? And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna fit pool first, and I'm just gonna play meter. I'm just gonna see how it goes. So I played meter, and it worked, and I was defending his speed roach attack. And before the match, before the last game, Law had come up, and he's like, we'd practice a little bit before the tournament, and he has this really cool thing where he goes meters, and then before he transitions, like really early on, he gets his 10 meters out, and then he gets a small group of Banes, crashes the Banes into the Spore Crawlers on the third base. The Spore Crawlers are dead, the meters kill the Queens, and then you just kill the third base for free. And it's this really cheeky build that, like, if their roaches are even just the slightest bit out of position, you get their third base. And if you get their third base, that's huge. That's like game winning.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. And I ran in, and I was and I did it, in true fashion. I was like so nervous, I was like, okay, I have to kill him with this. I can't transition out. So I was like getting Bane speed, and I built all these Banelings, and I killed his third base, and I was kind of rallying these lings into his 2 base Roach Queen Spore, and I'm like losing all these mutas unnecessarily. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? And so I'm like, okay, I'm starting a Roach War and getting Muta Chamber, trying to like, and at this point I'm like 3 base, got Roaches coming out. I'm like, okay, I've got this, I've got this. He's on 2 base still, and I eventually just got like 180 supply Roaches or something, walked into his main base, and it was just over.
Yeah. Nice. And so now you finally made it to the grand finals of ACL for the first time ever, right?
Yeah. It was insane.
And then you come up against Pigeon, who had to go through and slay so many Zergs to make it to the grand final. And you've been hot off of a whole bunch of ZVZs the entire championship bracket, like the whole way through. So, like, how confident were you going into your match against Pigeon, who ended up coming 3rd last year, and we haven't seen him all year, then comes back and just annihilates at ACL again. So how confident?
Yeah, I said it in the interview, like I said, they asked me, like, how confident are you feeling? He's been playing PvZ all day, you've been playing ZVZ all day. And I'm like, I know, like, I've been playing ZVZ all day, dude. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, it was like, I don't know if I think I said, like, it's going to be tough. Like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to beat him. And it was true because I didn't have a lot of preparation, and my ZVP I managed to beat frustration, but even then it was close versus frustration. It was down to the wire,
Yep.
and and I was like, oh, this guy's been beating all these Zergs with really great ZVP, and I'm kind of here just like, well, maybe my just, and I was like, I just kind of, I had nothing prepared. I had nothing. I was like, I guess I'm just gonna have to do my best and play my game. And I was like, and the thing with Pigeon is Pigeon's this weird Protoss because he plays like it's a year ago
Yep.
or like a year, and like he has this, his style's really old school,
Yeah.
and like it's not really old, but it's like he uses the builds that were really good, and they're still pretty good, but it's just most people can defend them.
Yeah.
And he uses, yeah, and because you're not really used to it, he was beating a lot of people. Um, and yeah, so I was like, oh, I don't know, but it was, I wasn't sure if I could beat him just purely playing like how I normally would. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna play like this. And I haven't really practiced this. It was Hatch Gas Pool. I was like, I haven't done this in like a year, but like I think it's good against like what he's gonna do.
Yep.
I'm gonna try it. We'll see how it goes. And so I kind of jumped in, and he did this fake third Stalker Sentry all in, like lots of gateways, no probes on the third base. But I saw it coming, and I was like, okay, I'll be fine. I had roach speed coming. I had this arc of roaches. I stopped droning at the top of my ramp, and I was ready to receive this all in. And he just comes up and he's just force fielding all my stuff out, and I'm like, what's going on? I was ready for this, but I'd gotten Burrow. I was like, okay, I see this coming so early. I'm gonna get Burrow because that'll completely shut it down. And then instead of completely shutting it down, it was like I survived because I had Burrow. Like I burrowed and he had no detection, and then I was able to push him away. He killed my third base though, so it was like and he killed quite a few drones. And he was he recalled, so he got away with a lot of it. So I was like, okay, I think we're pretty even. I'll just retake my third. He's going to start probing up his third. And I had a fourth base that he didn't see. So I was able to just transfer my drones over there and just mine there. And it was okay. So I kind of transitioned from that, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go Roachling Infestor, which is what I kind of feel is the best way to play. Because a lot of Protoss players will just stay on Blink Stalkers because there's no Swarm host to shut it down anymore. So I feel Infestors is really strong against that. So I was playing Infestor, and I was going into Broodlord, and I was just kind of defending his Warp Prisms and just trying to not take too much damage to DTs or anything, just defending. And then eventually he pushes out of his 3 base with this Immortal Stalker army. He had some Templar in there too, and my Broodlords just popped out just in time, defending my 4th base. And I just counterattacked with the Broodlords, and he had nothing really to deal with that, and I was able to win. Yep. That first game. And then the next 2 games were not great. He did this 4-gate Zealot, which was the primary reason I got on Hatch Gas Pool, and I just had some really poor decision making. And it's just the inexperience with the build, which is why I probably should have just kind of played something I was more used to, but I let him get his pylon up, and then he just kept warping in Zealots, and I had to keep making Speedlings, and eventually it's like, Speedlings aren't that great against Zealots.
No.
And so I held, but at that point he's kind of transitioned, and he's got a much better economy.
Yeah.
And then he kind of just went through and pushed off 3 base later and beat me. And then the final game he cannon rushed me, and again I was going this Hatch Gas Pool, and he hadn't cannon rushed all tournament. Like, talked to everyone, he hadn't cannon rushed. In the interview after, he's like, yeah, I didn't cannon rush. That's why I did it, because I thought he wouldn't know, and I completely didn't expect a cannon rush. Yep. So he cannon rushes me, and I wasn't expecting it at all. I wasn't prepared at all. I had no thought as to what I'd do if he cannon rushed me, and it just completely killed me. And it was like, And at that point I was dead, because coming from losers bracket, I started 1 map down in the best of 5, so he just won 3-1.
Damn.
Yeah, so it was tough. I was still really happy because I wasn't that well prepared, and even losing to Pigeon, it was rough. But my versus Protoss, I was like, the way I lost, whatever, I'll take that. Maybe if I could have beaten Lapecs in the winners, I feel like I could have done better.
Yep.
But I was 2nd place at ACL. That's crazy. 3 years ago, I was sitting at home watching ACL, watching Pig versus Moonglade or whatever in the final. Moonglade versus Rossi, the very first one, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this man, one day I want to play on that stage. I want to be in an ACL final. And it was crazy to actually live that this last weekend.
Nice. Now, you're $850 richer.
Mm.
Got your dirty esports money, and this is probably the last big LAN of the year. So, how was your overall ACL Sydney experience? Did you enjoy it? Enjoy it?
It was a lot of like, it was really well run tournament, you know. Baldy, he lost an admin, I believe, but he was a machine. Like he was just going around,
Yep.
and I was like, you know, bothering him all the time, like, oh man, like I don't want to play like this, or like my computer's, but and he just, you know, did it, fixed everything, and the tournament ran so well. Which, if the tournaments run well, it kind of makes the whole feel of the event really quite nice. So in that sense, it was really nice. Like the venue was good. There was great out. You know, we had these the thunder sticks or whatever they are, and people were just going like we're
Oh,
just
yeah. Oh,
smashing
yeah.
these thunder sticks together,
I
and it was like I one of the series in open bracket or like groups early on
Yeah.
where like we're all sitting there and just whenever anything happened, like person built a spawning pool, oh,
Yeah.
we're just like losing it, you know,
And then
and we're just smashing them together. And
I was watching on the train on my way up to Brisbane.
mm,
That I think it was Maynard. He said, "Oh, I think they just got told to stop smacking the boomsticks so much." I
oh
remember.
man. Yeah. Because it was loud. Like we had the crowd. It wasn't big, but it was there all day.
Yeah.
It was all day and just constant, you know, constant these thundersticks, constant cheering. And
Yeah.
you know, you look over at like CS:GO. You know, for the final, they had a lot more viewers in the crowd. But the whole weekend, like no crowd. And we have these passionate guys all together, just cheering all
Yeah.
day. Like their voices are dying. You know, their hands are sore, but they're still going. No, that was awesome.
Well, I'm going to quickly throw in a question that I didn't have on my list. You're actually ranked 12th in the OCS. Um,
Ah.
so, what's your plan going in towards the later half of the year now to try and maintain your top 16 position? Are you going to do more online tournaments or just try and gain points elsewhere to maintain that top 16 position?
Yeah, well, I mean, the main reason for me being that high is because of me qualifying for Challenger in the last WCS qualifier,
Yep.
where I got a lot of points. But I don't think for being it, because I'm in Challenger right now for this season, for
Yep.
being in Premier, I don't think for being seeded in you get any points. I think it's you have to actually play the qualifier.
Yep.
So in that, like, I feel like a lot of people are going to overtake me because of that. And I don't play a lot of weeklies. I mean, a lot of things are on the American server now, and recently I've had some bad ping there. I don't really like to play on America, so um, I don't play it a lot. You know, I'm busy, so it's my main goal is just to make the event at the end of the year, and I think I can't remember what the format changes, but I think top eight gets rewarded.
Okay.
So if I can get top eight. Or maybe it was top 16.
I think it was top
There's
16 to
some,
get into the
there's
tournament.
one cutoff, like there's the cutoff for who gets in, and then there's a cutoff for who has it really easy.
Yeah. Mm.
And I think maybe it's like actually like first seed has it really, really easy, and then it kind of goes down from there. Like
Yep.
the way it's set up, like I think it's set up to reward people who are higher seeds,
Yep.
which I agree with,
Yeah.
but I just don't think I'm going to be one of those higher seeds. Which, you know, whatever. I mean, I'll try to play more tournaments, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy just making it in for OSC.
So now that we're coming to the end of the Heart of the Swarm era, and the new era shall arise in the form of Legacy of the Void. So how do you see yourself going into the future? Will you race switch? Will you try and join an overseas team? What goals have you set yourself going into Legacy of the Void?
Not a lot, to be honest. Yeah, I don't really think about it too much. You know, I like seeing all the new stuff. It looks really fun. But for the most part, it's kind of like I'm just kind of playing Heart of the Swarm, enjoying that. And then when Legacy of the Void comes out, I'll switch over. I'm not going to switch race. Zerg for life. But, you know, I mean, am I going to join an international team? Probably not. Maybe at some point. You know, my main goals is not really to go overseas. If I do well in WCS and I go overseas, great. But I'm not. I don't really have any plans to go to DreamHack or IEM. Maybe if there's like an IEM Singapore, maybe I'll go to something like that. But for the most part, it's just stay in Australia and kind of really. So at the moment, like my results kind of reflect a player who's like a top three player in the region or something like that.
Yep.
But I kind of really want to feel like I'm a top three player in the region on skill, not just
Yep.
like
Not just
I
results.
can
Yeah.
I can no I it's not just every few tournaments like I can have these really great runs. I want it to be like this
Yeah.
guy is legit and he gets these great results, you know.
So
So that's kind of my goal, I guess.
I guess the goal is next year when I'm interviewing someone who's had a similar journey to you, I can name you off amongst Pig, Igers, and
Yeah, that's
Petraeus. Yeah,
exactly. You're saying like,
yeah,
so you came up against NXZ and you ended up losing to him and didn't qualify for the Premier League, but that's still it's NXZ. He's such a great player, so that's
that's the
fine.
kind of feeling you want to achieve. That's actually a very good goal. That's very respectable.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
it's just linearly improving, like each year like I kind of think this is what I want to do and then maybe I do better or worse, but um it's just step by step improving.
well, that's awesome. Is there any last things you want to say? Any shout outs you want to make, sir?
Yeah, of course. A shout out to Silicon Sports, my team. Rez for sending me to ACL. I hope I did you guys proud. Got the second place. It wasn't the win, but it was pretty close. I did my best. Of course, shout out to Lawrence. He's awesome.
All right,
Lawrence.
all right.
Okay, yeah. So he's my teammate now. He helps me practice. Like he's a huge help. He helped me. I wouldn't have been able to get second at ACL without his help. I wouldn't have been able to make Premier without his help. He's. I probably wouldn't have even been able to make it to Challenger without his help. Like he's like the. We like this at ACL. We were saying like I'm just like a puppet, and he's like above me with like the thing,
The strings.
just,
Yep.
just controlling me, and I'm just doing everything. Like he's amazing. And then obviously with Kid, which is kind of like our fun clan we have with me, Law, Wally, and Mighty Kiwi, and a couple other guys who are in there, honorary members. Yeah, we go hard, so we have a lot of fun there. Shout out to them, of course, and other than that, shout outs to you for interviewing me, for listening to me rant for like however long this has been. Um, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Well, no worries. Thank you very much for the interview, and all the best for the remainder of your 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan NXZ Jones, I hope you enjoyed the interview. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.